In Quebec, over 167,000 students are still on strike against the provincial government's plan to raise tuition fees by 75%. Quebec students have been striking for 3 months amidst a background of ongoing protests, student direct actions creating economic disruptions, and harsh police repression. The Quebec government has been refusing to reconsider their plan for tuition fee hikes. New negotiations over the weekend that many hoped would end the standoff are now unraveling. On Friday, students traveled to Victoriaville, Quebec, where the Liberal government had moved its General Council meeting to avoid protests. The demonstrations turned violent, with one protester losing an eye, hospitalizations, and over 100 people arrested. Student leaders from the 4 groups that represent students in Quebec and Quebec government officials came to an agreement on Saturday after all-night 22-hour negotiations in Quebec City, attempting to end the ongoing strike and get students back in school. The agreement includes an overall tuition freeze for the next 6 months, slashed fees to offset tuition hikes, and a committee to explore savings in university budgets. But after the 6-month freeze, the government can still go ahead with its plan to raise tuition fees over the course of 7 years. Student unions vote on the deal this week. Many students are opposed to the agreement and are continuing to protest. And now, student leaders who negotiated the deal are saying the Quebec government changed some crucial details of the proposal, and the final agreement is not exactly what they thought they had signed. Voting has already started, and most student associations are voting overwhelmingly against the offer. 2 weeks ago, negotiations broke down between Quebec's Education Minister, Line Beauchamp, and the 3 main student groups behind the strike, when the minister kicked one of the groups, Classe, out of the talks. The Quebec government then made the students an offer to phase in the tuition increase over 7 years, rather than the previous plan of 5 years, which actually raises the overall tuition hike because of interest fees. Classe unanimously rejected the Liberal government's offer. On May Day, the other 2 associations, FEC and FEC, came up with their counteroffer. Martine Desjardins is the president of the Student University Federation in Quebec.
So first of all, we're creating a commission to evaluate the university management and making sure that we have a management that is very transparent.
The Student Federation proposal includes a 2-year moratorium on all new university spending, with what they call an Estates General or public forum, an exploration on university spending and financing, a 5-year moratorium on the construction of new university campuses, and a freeze on tuition hikes for 2 years. Some students expressed their discontent with FEC and FEC's counteroffer. Jerome Charawi is a striking university student from the University of Montreal, who disagrees with negotiating with the Quebec government.
I think it's not the time to be entering into any sort of negotiations. We've seen the government is on the defensive. The Liberal Party has decided not to hold its meetings in Montreal. They've announced that earlier this week. So I think right now is simply the time for the student movement to push forward and continue with the strike and continue protesting and demonstrating in the streets. I think that's the way that we're gonna win our fight against the tuition hike.
The Student Association Classe presented their counteroffer on Thursday at a press conference. Their proposal presents 4 short-term measures to solve the crisis, including reducing money spent on university research, particularly research tied to commercial and private enterprises, an end to commercial publicity, which increased by 20% in the last 5 years, an immediate salary and hiring freeze for administrators, and a moratorium on the building of satellite campuses. Gabrielle Nadeau-Dubois is the co-spokesperson for the Student Association Classe.
For us, the role and the fundamental role of our university is not research for private enterprise, and it's not also to make commercial publicity to steal students to other universities. So we think this publicity war has to come to an end. We think that the government should impose, starting tomorrow, a total suspension of any increase on publicity, and that would permit us to go find $18 million per year to finance teaching, which is for us the fundamental activity of our universities.
Classe also presented their long-term proposal, which they say would facilitate free post-secondary education in Quebec by 2016.
We are asking to hold a large public forum, in French we say états généraux, as soon as next fall or next winter, in order really to have the debate on the deep issues and the real issues who are behind the tuition increase. Since the beginning of the strike, the public debate is a semantic debate, is a number debate, and we think we should have a debate of ideas, a debate of principles on what do we do? What do we want for our universities? What do we think is the role of our universities? How should we finance universities? And class would profit of this forum to put on the table a concrete project who could permit to Quebec to go to free school in a delay of 5 years. To finance this project, we are proposing the reinstauration of the capital tax on the banks of Canada. So we're talking about a 0.14% tax for the first year, a tax would increase over 5 years to go to 0.7% in 2016.
Nadeau-Dubois says this would yield $400 million, which she says is the cost of free post-secondary education for Quebec. The idea of free education is not new in the province, going back to the 1960s Royal Commission on Education, or the Parent Report, that kickstarted the overhaul of Quebec's educational system, creating free colleges or CEGEPs, and the 9 University of Quebec campuses. The report also outlined a plan to provide free education for post-secondary students in Quebec. Renaud Poirier, press secretary for the Student Association CLAS, says CLAS neither agrees nor opposes the deal reached on the weekend between student negotiators and the Quebec government. They will put the offer on the table for the students in their associations to decide. In face of the new offer placed on the table by Quebec government officials and student leaders, and amid new revelations of the Quebec Liberal government's excessive spending and ties to corruption scandals, students are continuing their daily actions and vow to continue even as the semester is ending. Martine Desjardins, president of the Student Association FEUC, says that there is not much support for the agreement hammered out over the weekend. And some students are even considering canceling the whole semester, what Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois calls the ultimate sacrifice. This week will be crucial in the outcome of the Quebec student strike, as students vote in their associations and unions whether to accept or reject the new offer. Lillian Boctor, Real News Network, Montreal.